Hello, I am Ed Fuquay, Young Adult Librarian Extraordinaire,
Solitaire Frisbee from the Children's Room.
and we're here to discuss another episode of Conversations where we talk about Journey to the West, or Monkey King Part 2.
Great, let's have it.
Yes, it's very exciting. So, as you recall, in our last exciting episode, we met Sun Wukong, the Monkey King. Very powerful, very impulsive, very rash. He wound up being, he was thrown out of heaven twice. He was thrown out of hell. He managed to offend the sensibilities of the Confucian Jade Emperor. He managed to break Lao Tzu's magic trigram furnace. And then he peed on the Buddha's hand. So, yeah. So for all of that, he was imprisoned under a rock for 500 years. Actually, under an entire mountain. So he was sealed away by the Buddha for 500 years. But eventually the time came. Buddha had written all these sutras which could save the world from turning to evil. And someone had to deliver them to China. So someone had to go and cross what we know as the Himalayan mountains to bring all of these prayers back to save mankind from demons that were menacing the earth. Strangely, the incredibly powerful Chinese gods could not do this themselves. And no one really knows why. But they had to turn to help of a very odd ragtag group of heroes to accomplish this goal. Now, before I go any further, I totally forgot something last week that I meant to mention. Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, is not only really popular in China and Japan and all across Asia, he also plays an interesting role in Hindu mythology, specifically in the Ramayana. Now, we'll discuss this at greater length when you get to Hindu mythology, but the Ramayana has a suspiciously similar character named Hanuman, who is also a king of monkeys, who comes to the aid of Rama during a time of crisis. As a kid, I just assumed they were the same mythological character. Technically, they're not. Technically, they come from different folk legends. But a lot of people are very fond of both characters. So, although it's not exactly official canon, people assume that Hanuman, who came first, was the original, and then he was reincarnated as Sun Wukong.
Okay.
So they are technically the same person.
All right.
I'll buy that. It's mythology. It makes as much sense as anything else. So so that is how he came to play a part in two of the major world mythologies. And if Sun Wukong were here, I'm sure he would tell you that he deserves more than just two mythologies. That he should also be back in Egypt fighting Apophis alongside Set and, helping like Moses escape from Egypt and attacking the Pharaoh's men. He would totally have done that. I'm sure he thinks he should be part of every world mythology. But so far, two is all they really know about. All right, so he sealed in a mountain for 500 years. Now, the book is called Journey to the West. It also involves a journey both to the east and the west, but they only call it Journey to the West. I don't know why. The book is based on a actual nonfiction account of someone who really did bring Buddhist scriptures to China. But for whatever reason, a guy decided to rewrite that as a completely fictional story and fill it with gods and monsters, and that became so popular that the original is now lost.
Oh.
To a certain extent, we can say this is based on a true story, kind of. Why not? Sun Wukong is not technically the hero of Journey to the West, but when you read it, he's by far the most interesting character. It's full of characters because it's thousands of pages long. So basically, because these Buddhist sutras or scriptures had to be delivered to save mankind from demons. So Kuan Yin, also known as Guan Yin, who is the Buddhist goddess of mercy. She's a very cool character worshipped all across the Far East. She's technically not a goddess. She is technically a bodhisattva. A bodhisattva is a mortal who has achieved nirvana. But rather than moving on to the next world, she chooses to come back and live in this world to help more people out. In a lot of her statues, she seems to have hundreds of hands sticking out from behind her. If you see a statue like that, the one with thousands of hands, that's Kuan Yin, because she wants to give a helping hand to literally everyone in the world. That's how awesome she is.
Okay. Her name one more time?
Kuan Yin, also Guan Yin.
Is that a single word or is
Two
that
words.
two?
Kuan Yin.
Okay.
And I'm probably mispronouncing it, but So a priest was chosen to carry these scriptures. And Kuan Yin went around having a series of adventures. And in each adventure, she encountered someone who needed salvation, someone who had done something bad and had to make up for it somehow. And so she secretly arranged for each of these people to be along the journey that this monk had to take. And Sun Wukong was only one of the companions that she chose for this magnificent journey. The person who is technically the star is Xuan Zhang. I'm going to call him a Tripitaka because I can pronounce that more easily.
Okay.
He has at least 4 different names. Wikipedia calls him one thing. People from China who do YouTube videos call him something else. Tripitaka is one of his names that I find easiest to pronounce. He is a Buddhist monk, so he's got the whole shaved head and everything going on. He's a pacifist. As a D&D character, he is lawful good. You might call him lawful stupid in some instances. He's a pacifist, and even though he lives in a universe where virtually everyone can shapeshift, he can't shapeshift. He's also one of the few Buddhist monks in any kind of story you've ever heard who is not a martial arts expert.
Oh.
Does not know any martial arts. No, he just meditates a lot.
Okay.
His meditations do not help him see through the evil machinations of the numerous demons and monsters that will attack them. So he relies very much on his companions to escape that, and Kuan Yin must have known that going into it. There's a Freudian interpretation of all this, is that he's like the self, and the other ones are like his id and his superego and so forth, the different companions. Take that as you will. So, for companions, this is what we've got. So Tripitaka has a Bai Logma. We'll get to him later. He's dull. There is Sha Wu Ching, who is also called Sandy.
Okay.
Sandy, easier to pronounce than Sha Wu Ching. Sandy is a water demon. Some say he's nicknamed Sandy because he lives in the sand at the bottom of the river, and he rises up out of that, grabs people, and drowns them. Mm-hmm. Other people notice that the letters that make up Sha Wu Ching are the same as the letter that makes up Sandy, okay. So they call him Sandy. He's a demon. He's actually under a curse that made him into a demon. He's been killing travelers who come to his river, but Kuan Yin gives him a chance to redeem himself by helping this great journey. So naturally, he agrees to go. He's kind of the middleman, kind of the silent type, doesn't play that big a role in it. But he's always there, and he always pitches in to help. Sort of a middle-of-the-road, nice guy kind of character. And then you have Zhu Baji, who is better known as Pigsy. Pigsy was cursed. He was thrown out of heaven. He had a very important position as a royal guard to the Jade Emperor in heaven, but he was thrown out for his bad behavior. He likes to eat, he likes to drink, and he likes to flirt with beautiful women. So at a banquet, he got very drunk, was a little too forward with the goddess of the moon, and so he was condemned to go back to Earth and was changed into a pig demon. He is a pig in almost every sense of the word. Big snout, floppy ears, that kind of thing. And on Earth for a while, he ran around eating people, human beings and so forth, because he hated himself, he hated the world, and Kuan Yin convinced him he can redeem himself for all that he's done if he just helps this poor schmuck carry all these Buddhist sutras, to where they have to go. His signature weapon is a rake. He fights with the iron rake.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why either. No one else does. Rakes generally are considered martial arts weapons in any part of Chinese mythology that I can find. I mean, it's a big piece of metal with sharpy points on it.
True.
So yeah.
I can see it.
Yeah, there's one version of it where they say he can rake people's souls out of their bodies somehow with his advanced rake techniques.
Well, that's a cooler spin.
There you go. Yeah. So if you ever see a picture of a character in any kind of anime or manga that's carrying a rake on his shoulder, and is probably a little fat, that's Pigsy. That leaves us with Bai Logma, who is the son of the Dragon King of the Western Sea. However, he accidentally burned down his father's palace, which is tricky because it's at the bottom of the ocean. But he breathes fire, and so he managed to burn down his father's palace and was exiled. So he wants to redeem himself as well. And so Kuan Yin says that this monk needs a horse to ride. And so he transformed himself magically into a horse. Now, you would imagine having a horse that can change into a dragon, is actually has human intelligence, would be useful on a trip like this. but you could be mistaken. White Dragon Horse does almost nothing the entire adventure. No matter what dire straits they're in, he's just a horse. And at one time he does shapeshift and try to do something, he's immediately defeated. So maybe it's just as well he stays as a horse.
Sounds
As
like
a
it.
horse, he's very useful. And then, of course, there's Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, whose numerous offenses I described last time. And describing Sun Wukong's history takes up the first 7 chapters of this book, which is, several thousand pages long. And each of these characters gets their own backstory. Each of them fills up a couple of chapters. Tripitaka is actually the reincarnation of somebody who was famous if I knew Chinese history, and he's also the reincarnation of one of Buddha's original followers named Golden Lotus, and Locust, I think. Yeah, Golden Locust. But none of that's really important. So he's assembling a ragtag band of heroes, which is a trope you'll see a lot in Western literature. People who are all, like the Dirty Dozen, they're all murderers and monsters, literally in some cases, who all have a lot to prove. So they join forces with Tripitaka to go across the mountains and carry all this stuff. Now, almost immediately they're beset by bandits. That's their first trial. So in the course of the fight, Sun Wukong immediately attacks the bandits and kills them.
Okay.
He has a staff that's actually a marble pillar from a palace, which he smacks them with. And immediately Tripitaka gets upset because as a Buddhist, he is a pacifist, and he can allow his followers to defend themselves, but they cannot kill. And Sun Wukong is really upset about this. He kind of doesn't mind killing people. So immediately Tripitaka prays to Kuan Yin, who comes down, and she presents Sun Wukong with a magic gold headband, which she refers to as a crown, to trick him into putting it on.
Okay.
And as soon as he puts it on, it settles down around his forehead. And whenever Tripitaka says a certain prayer that Kuan Yin teaches him, it starts to contract and cause him excruciating pain. So every time he tries to do something that Tripitaka doesn't like, it can cause him tremendous pain. And it can't be removed, so he's forced to wear it. And so he has no choice but to go along with what this guy wants. And it's not easy, because at one point, they're confronted by demons who have made themselves look like innocent travelers. And with his flaming eyes, Sun Wukong immediately sees through their disguise. He knows right away, they're demons. So he starts to attack them, and immediately Tripitaka triggers the headband. And Sun Wukong falls to the ground screaming and clutching at his forehead. How much he tries to convince Tripitaka, he fails. So he's so annoyed about this, he flies away. Why he doesn't fly across the mountains with the prayers is another question. Probably the same reason why Gandalf doesn't summon eagles really early in Lord of the Rings and make for a very short story. He doesn't do it because he doesn't do it. Sun Wukong is so upset he goes back and he moves back in with his monkey tribe and becomes the Monkey King again. So meanwhile, demons attack. Pigsy and Sandy try to defend their Tripitaka but fail. Tripitaka's captured, about to be eaten. So Pigsy goes back and locates the monkey tribe and comes in, and Sun Wukong immediately, "You quit too, fantastic!" and starts plying him with fruit and pineapples and apples and so forth. And Pigsy eventually gets around to mentioning, by the way, I didn't actually quit. We totally screwed up, and now Tripitaka's about to die. Yeah, that's Pigsy for you. Again, he's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. So reluctantly, Sun Wukong goes back and saves Tripitaka's life. They eventually do bond and learn to work together, although Pigsy never gets any smarter. At one point when they're captured by yet another band of demons, Sun Wukong manages to escape by changing into a fly. So he comes back to rescue them and using his shape-shifting powers to make himself look like a demon. So they'll slide into their fortress and free his companions. And of course, as soon as he arrives, Pigsy recognizes him and starts calling him by name. Yeah, with friends like that. So this goes on for 82 chapters, literally.
Wow.
And they fight a different god or monster or demon or evil king in every single chapter. It literally goes on and on. And if they lose, then they have to spend the chapter going on like side quests to power up. If like Sun Wukong loses a fight, and then they wander around the mountains till they find a monk who needs something done. And so they rush out and help him, and then in return, he will teach them some kind of secret punch or secret kick or, flailing tail technique they can use to defeat the demon. If this sounds a lot like a video game, that's because that is exactly how it reads. It's just like a video game, or it's just like a long-running TV series. 82 episodes, a different baddie in every episode. And so it's no wonder it's been the inspiration for a huge number of manga and various other stories over the years. Literally one after another, the stories just go on and on. At one point, a demon gets jealous of the really cool monk's robes that Tripitaka is wearing, so he steals them, leaving Tripitaka naked. And so to trick him, Kuan Yin changes Sun Wukong into a pill of immortality. And so Tripitaka trades the pill of immortality for his robes. And then so the demon swallows the pill, and once inside his body, well, things happen. Sun Wukong changes back, there's lots of internal punching and things like that, and it doesn't end well for the demon. This goes on and on. At one point, Tripitaka is nearly seduced by beautiful female spiders. Spider women can be extremely seductive, according to this story. They tie him up with their webbing and work on him like all night long. He steadfastly resists their encouragements, though, until he's finally freed by Sun Wukong. Then they go to their master, who turns out to be a giant yellow scorpion, who's covered with dots that emit a blinding light, so you can't see him in order to attack him. So there's another whole sequence they have to fight the giant centipede.
Okay.
There's a scorpion demon. At one point they go to an Amazon country that's filled entirely with women, but when she discovers that Tripitaka is on this mission from the gods, the queen decides to get herself in good with the gods by marrying him and sort of writing herself into the legend that way. So it's a whole country full of beautiful women whose queen wants Tripitaka. He naturally managed to resist her as well, with great difficulty. He managed to fight her off, and so eventually his companions come and rescue him. But it turns out, in the middle of women's country, there was an evil scorpion demoness who was hiding. And she believed she was exposed by the power of Sun Wukong. And so she took off, so they spent the next chapter of the book fighting a scorpion demoness. The big bad in some versions of the story, movies that have to have a climactic ending, always have the great bull demon being the big bad. In Monkey King, Havoc at Heaven's Gate, the bull demon is the big bad. The bull demon is married to Princess Iron Fan, who in some versions is actually the Jade Emperor's sister. He can't attack directly because the bull demon is actually his brother-in-law. The one time he defeated the bull demon, his sister begged for mercy, and he had no choice but to grant it. Having granted him mercy once, he really can't attack him again by his oath. But fortunately, sending a group of hardy warriors across the mountains into his kingdom is a guaranteed way for a throwdown. Princess Iron Fan fights with, not surprisingly, an iron fan, although it's sometimes made to look like a leaf, like a big bronze leaf from a tree. I don't know why. Maybe the words for fan and leaf are similar in Chinese. No clue. There's also a great one, which I read about, but I haven't actually found that actual chapter, where it turns out Sun Wukong is not the only magical Monkey King in the world.
Oh.
He fights another species of Monkey King. This one is a macaw, who has identical powers to his. And sure enough, during the fight, the evil Monkey King changes himself to look exactly like Sun Wukong. So you had the old, oh no, I can't tell them apart. Like that Star Trek episode where there were two Kirks fighting. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Journey to the West did all of these cliches first. Back in the 16th century, they were doing this stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. So eventually, after 82 long chapters of fighting monsters and demons, they make their way across the mountains. They deliver all the Buddhist sutras, and mankind is saved, being corrupted by demons forever. Yay, happy ending. So in the end, Sun Wukong drops to his knees, and he prays for Kuan Yin and says, "Can you please remove this headband so I can be free?" And she laughs and says, "Sun Wukong, you haven't had that headband on for a very long time." It disappeared in the course of the journey because he no longer needed it, because he had learned his lesson. It's not all about him.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's very cool, and it is so inspirational to like Western and Eastern culture. Um,
Clearly,
Yeah.
because prior to your saying it, I was going through all of my husband's many video games, and I'm like, this is really just sounding so very familiar,
is.
but I couldn't put my finger
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, in Inuyasha, there's a guy who's a dog demon, and a woman from modern times travels back to mythical Japan, and he has a magic collar put around his neck so she can control him and use him for good. But of course, they fall for each other, and by the end, he doesn't need the collar at all to do the right thing. Dragon Ball, which is about someone actually named Goku. He has a monkey's tail. He doesn't have any magic headband or anything, but guess what? He's very impulsive, and he too has to learn patience and helping other people and things like that. You've got Naruto in your hand.
I do.
Naruto has a fox spirit inside of him, and no one managed to collar him or put a headband on, but many characters wish that they could, because he is more trouble than he's worth. He has an evil fox spirit inside of him, but he's determined to use his powers for good, even though he's rash, impulsive, massive case of ADD. So he has many lessons to learn on the course of his journey, which also lasts around 80-some chapters. But it's more than just like adventure games and things like that. This one by Gene Yang, American-born Chinese. He uses the story of Sun Wukong as a metaphor for fitting in from a different culture. Learning what it takes to be an Asian person living in America and so forth. Things happen to him in real life, but he relates them to things from the story of Sun Wukong. So he gets to retell all the big Monkey King stories in there. And he won tons of awards. You can see by the cover. It's a very good book.
Very
So what do you think of the Monkey King?
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hugely influential. So many books, video games, comic books. I can't even go into all the different adaptations. There's a cartoon I watched for like a year from Japan before I realized it was Journey to the West. It was a cartoon called in America Star Avengers.
Okay.
And it has a rash, impulsive guy and a big, heavyset guy. And anyway, yeah, it's basically the same exact story, but it's all done with suits of powered armor in space because it's a Japanese anime. So you can literally adapt the story to any genre or setting. You could do a modern day version if you wanted. You know. Yeah. Yeah, Jackie Chan and Jet Li could totally film a version tomorrow. In fact, Jet Li did film a version of it just a few years ago. Donnie Yen played the Monkey King in the Havoc at Heaven's Gate movie.
Okay.
So yes, that is the story of Sun Wukong the Monkey King and the several thousand page Journey to the West.
How many actually?
I don't know how many pages. It's written down here somewhere. I think it's in my notes. It's 2,000 pages long.
Who beats it?
I don't know. It's huge.
Shakespeare, maybe?
Possibly altogether, but this is one story. Although technically, he goes off into so many different tangents. Like I said, every character gets at least a chapter with his full backstory.
That's massive.
Yeah. And at the end, they're all rewarded. Pigsy is sent back to heaven again, and the dragon is welcomed back in by his father. Doesn't have to be a horse anymore, and so forth.
Did you say that the belief is that it was written in one shot, or is this a story that it was added on at different points in history?
It was all put down at one point. It's probably drawn together from different strands of folklore.
But the actual are we talking about?
There is an actual author for this. Yes, I don't know his
author?
name, but there is a single author for this. Yeah.
Okay.
It was published as a fiction book because China had early printing presses.
Right.
So there actually is a record of when it first came out.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's a pretty amazing story. And again, you've seen a million references to it and probably not known it.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, so we'll continue on a mythological journey next week.
All right. And
I think I'm heading towards Polynesia,
Ooh.
which is not that far away from Asia.
Okay.
So until then, I've been Ed.
Solitaire.
This has been Conversations. We'll see you next week. Until then, be safe.